Libya, let's cross to John Rees from the Stop the War Coalition. He joins us live from London. Mr. Rees, many thanks for being here. Now, do you think that military intervention is likely to take place in Libya now?
Well, I sincerely hope not. It's quite clear that both the Americans and the British are making serious noises about this, but it would be an absolute disaster were they to carry through with these plans. Practically the one sensible thing that makes any sense at all to Libyans is when Colonel Gaddafi says that the revolution is a mask for foreign involvement. If the imperial powers actually do intervene, it will make it look as if he's right, and that will be a disastrous turn of events for the revolutionaries who are trying to overthrow him. I was recently in both Tahrir Square in Cairo and in Tunis, and I think that the Western powers have to be very clear that the last thing that the people who've toppled their dictators in the Middle East want is the intervention of the Western powers.
You say military intervention would be disastrous for Libya. Some have suggested that such possible intervention could see a repeat of the Iraq war scenario. What's your fears over possible military intervention?
Well, I think that's absolutely right. I mean, it should be clear to an idiot that the mess that's been made in Afghanistan, the terrible disaster that was caused in Iraq, really shouldn't be visited on any more countries in the Middle East, least of all at a time when the populations of those countries are doing very well, thank you, in dealing with their dictators. We can see what the problem might be if we look at events over the last few days in Iraq itself, because there were joint Sunni and Shia demonstrations that went to the Green Zone, in which perhaps 13, perhaps more people were killed by a puppet government, which is still ruling by virtue of an American military occupation of Iraq. Really, that is not the kind of help that the revolutionaries throughout the Middle East need.
Colonel Gaddafi has accused Western leaders of betraying him in all this. Do you think that that's a sentiment that might perhaps be echoed by other Arab leaders across the region?
Well, I think the people who will be betrayed by any military action are the ordinary people in their millions who've made these revolutions or are attempting to make these revolutions across the Middle East. I mean, quite frankly, I don't care what Colonel Gaddafi thinks. What is breathtaking is the hypocrisy of the Western leaders. I mean, really, only days ago, the Western leaders, in particular the leaders of the United States and Britain, were arming, financing, lavishing praise on the Gaddafi regime. These are the very last people who should now be turning around and pretending to be the people assisting the revolutions that are trying to overthrow Gaddafi. Perhaps if they'd had this thought earlier, Gaddafi would have been overthrown many years ago.
We're looking across the region now and at another country in turmoil. Somalia has been in civil war for more than a decade now, yet intervention there has been very slim. Why is that?
Well, I think we all understand that the imperial powers have no universal interest in backing human rights or indeed in backing revolutions. They do so when it suits them and for completely other purposes. And we already know in this country there are already voices saying, look, what we're going there for is to protect the oil installations and other interests. So the argument about defending the revolution or helping the revolution is completely untrue and completely self-serving. Actually, if they wanted to do that, of course, there is a revolutionary government in Benghazi. More than half the country is already liberated. If the Western powers were really interested in helping the revolution, they should recognise that revolutionary government right now. Doesn't seem to be very high on their priorities, though.
So what else should these Western powers be doing to react to this, aside from getting their own citizens out of the country? Should they now also be backing out of Libya's internal affairs?
Absolutely. They need to keep out. The record of the Western powers, of the imperial powers generally in the Middle East, is one of disaster piled upon disaster. And the very first lesson that should be learned is that, especially given recent events, is that the people of the Middle East are entirely capable of dealing with these dictators on their own terms. Even when we talk about the no-fly zone, there have been Libyan pilots taking their planes and defecting in Malta. There's been a Libyan pilot who has crashed his plane in the desert rather than open fire on the revolutionaries. There was a story yesterday about the Libyan revolutionaries downing a pro-Gaddafi plane. We really don't need to see the British Air Force or the British Army or the American Marine Corps or the American Navy helping these people out. They're completely capable of ruling themselves and of dealing with these dictators on their own terms. And the important point about this is those who do the liberating get to do the ruling afterwards. If the revolutionaries do the liberating, they get to rule their own country afterwards. If the 82nd Airborne do it, we know what happens when they get to run the country afterwards.
OK, John Rees, British political activist and national officer at the Stop the War Coalition. Many thanks for speaking to us.